welcome back to the Prison Officer Podcast. My name's Mike Cantrell, and today I've got a friend who we've worked together for years. We worked together as captains for many years with the Bureau of Prisons, and he's someone I've always respected for the way he takes physical fitness and mindset and everything like that. He's always been very prepared with that type of stuff, and we're going to talk to him today about some of that, but we're also going to talk about his story and how he got to where he retired from. So welcome, Glenn McDonald. I'm glad to have you back on the podcast.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Definitely appreciate it. And
Yeah.
thank you.
I had you on here on the captain's table not too long ago.
Which was that was great. That was a really good idea. I really like that.
Yeah, we need to do another one of those. Get you and Gary and Dennis back together, and I thought we had a really good conversation. But today I'm going to focus on you. So start from the beginning and kind of tell me where you grew up and what you did growing up, what kind of family life and stuff you had.
All right, Glenn McDonald. I was born and raised in Connecticut, which is a very small state in the Northeast. If people don't know where it is, just below Massachusetts, and in between Rhode Island and New York. So it's a very small town. I don't even know where I lived it's called Manchester, Connecticut. So it was like in between Hartford and a few other more rural type areas, more farmland type areas. And the funny thing is, a couple weeks ago, I was actually back there. We had my uncle passed away, and my father, who's a little bit older now, he needed some help to get around. I went back with him, and I was just like, man, what the hell? Like, I can't believe this place has not changed one bit. I haven't been back there in like 20-something years, and I was just like, I can't believe it. I mean, it looks exactly the same.
How big a town is it? How many people?
Probably no more than 10,000, somewhere around there. Yeah. I'm just guessing, but it's not that many people. Yeah, right. So I really good, very good upbringing, close knit family. From what I remember, I was always over at my aunt and uncle's. My father had 7 brothers and 2 sisters, so very huge family. We were always doing something. My dad was like a big fisherman. Always went fishing quite a bit when I was younger. Played high school. I played football. I tried wrestling. I wasn't very good at that. I was a lot better at football, I thought anyways.
Yeah, right.
Tried my best with that. Went through high school, and just a average kid, not average. I should say I really enjoyed the military type history stuff. So I was like back then, I mean, people didn't know what geeks were, but I was kind of geeking out on the military history stuff. And back then it was okay to run around with a plastic M16 playing war and stuff like that. And people wouldn't call the police on you or anything like that. And we'd do all kinds of fun stuff on the weekends.
Well, you're about my age, so we were playing Rambo, we were playing Commando. That's when all the good war movies came out.
Yep. Yeah,
Did you have a history of military service in your family?
Actually, from what I remember, I think there was like maybe, I don't know if my grandfather, my dad's dad was in the military. I'm not even sure. I just had a cousin that was in the military.
Right.
That was it. I just kind of gravitated towards that, and was very.
You knew where you were going after high school, then.
Yeah. Pretty much had the plan was I was definitely going to go into the military. I didn't know what branch, and then I was kind of like, I think my cousin went into the Army, and then I was like reading books about like the Army, the Marine Corps. Very few books back then about certain things, and I remember reading one book. It was like called I want to say it was called The Diary of Guadalcanal. It was about the Marines landing Guadalcanal and the fighting, jungle fighting. I was like, oh man, that's great. That sounds great. Living in a jungle and fighting. It's like, I could tell what I'm thinking about. And then, so I mean, I don't know. It's kind of strange. Like I definitely was not the smartest kid. I wasn't very good at, math and history and studying and all this. And I was more like, hey, let's go outside and, play football or some kind of sports or do something outside, and more of like a like a hands-on type of guy. So the whole academic thing was not a big deal for me. So I really didn't, back then I should have studied more probably. When I took the ASVAB for I remember I went into the Air Force because I think I was telling my mom how I wanted to join the military. She's like, well, go to the Air Force. I'm like, Air Force? I'm like, all right. So, you got to listen to your parents. So I go talk to the guy, and I think I took a pre-ASVAB type test. I can't remember what it was back then.
Right.
And I probably like just totally probably got like a 10% pass or something. I don't know. He just basically kind of laughed me out of the office. I remember then I went to the Army, and I like saw the Army guy, and I was like, yeah, he's like kind of like all out of shape and just kind of like nasty looking, and I'm like, nah, I think I'll pass on that. And then I went over to the Navy. Same with the Navy guy, kind of like nonchalant. I think back then you could smoke in the office, and I think he's like just sitting back, smoking, drinking coffee, and I'm just like, nah. And then I went over. I think I came back a few days later, and of course, back then I'm like riding my bike to the recruiter, stuff like that. And I went in the Marine Corps, and this guy was short, like barrel-chested. He was a gunnery sergeant. His name was Gunnery Sergeant Hando. I was like, man, that is like the coolest freaking name. Like that's like he's got to be like a commando, right? His name is Hando. It's like,
right.
Yeah, he's definitely a special guy or something, And we kind of hit it off pretty good, and I don't know if he fudged my scores or what he did, but I passed the ASVAB somehow.
Yep.
I passed just enough. Were you in the military? I can't remember, Mike.
I was for a little bit. I was in the Army.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I get past the ASVAB, and back then you were just you still are, but you're just a number. So it was like, hey, I got a great opportunity for you, and I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna be I'm gonna be like an aircraft mechanic, something. That's going to help me out later on. In my head, I was like, oh, I want to be infantry. That's it. Just infantry. Just give me a rifle and I'll run around and, shoot stuff. But he's like, sure. I got a great opportunity. You're going to go open contract. I'm like, oh, what's that? He's like, well, when you get in and you get through boot camp, it's going to pick you up as what they need. And most likely it's going to be infantry. And I'm like, sold. It's just like, across my head, it should have said sucker, so, that's just the way it was, so I signed my life away, and I get my report date to boot camp for I want to say it was like June 26th, like 6 days after I graduated high school. So I'm like, oh yeah, I can't wait. And it's funny, my friend John, we both played football together, and I actually did a podcast with him too. We actually went in under the what they call the buddy program. So you go in you sign up a friend together, and you both go in at the same time. So you kind of go through boot camp together. Depending on your MOS, you might go through your MOS school together, stuff like that. So. So me and John are like, oh, hell yeah. People giving us parties before we left and, good times. So we leave for boot camp. This is back in 1988. We leave for boot camp. go to Parris Island, and I want to say it was like definitely within the first week. I want to say we do our initial PFT where they rate you on your pull-ups, sit-ups, in a 3-mile run. So right. I was definitely no PT stud or anything like that where I could knock out 20 pull-ups and 80 sit-ups and a 3-mile run. I just I got past it. That's it. I barely made. I got just the minimum probably on everything. So I passed it, and lo and behold, John fails. Right. Oh. So, and here I am in Parris Island, and I'm like, oh, now my high school buddy, he's getting kicked out, or he's going. They recycled him to a different battalion. So I think he got pushed back 2 weeks or something like that. So so I'm going through boot camp, and I was like, man, I really like this. This is my thing. I really like it. Getting yelled at, discipline, marching, running around with, doing all these combat drills and things like that. And I was like, oh, I'm in my place. I'm definitely in my place. I was 19 at the time and very, skinny, kind of, I guess, in kind of good shape. But I still struggled. I definitely struggled in boot camp. I mean, it's definitely something, back then they didn't have like all these training programs you see now and, CrossFit and going to this gym for special training and this and that and things like that. And, I look back, I'm like, man, maybe I should have ran more. Maybe I should have done more push-ups or tried to find a pull-up bar before I went in. So, but, I made it. I made it through. Definitely different coming from Connecticut to a big, giant pool of people from all over the place.
Sure. Which
was kind of I don't want to say a struggle. It was kind of just different, because I wasn't exposed to too many people back then. It was a very small area where I lived. We traveled a little bit when I was a kid, but nothing like what you ran to. I was in boot camp with guys from New York City.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, this is a whole different type of person, I remember one time, I don't know if you've ever really interviewed two other Marines or anything, but they used to have in boot camp, they'd have these, some of the recruits were enforcers for the drill instructors. So if somebody would get out of line, all of a sudden they take that one Marine, they go put him in the bathroom, and all of a sudden the enforcer would go in there. Either excuse me, either you wouldn't see that recruit again, or he'd come out with a couple stitches in his face.
New attitude.
Oh yeah, I mean back then it happened. It just happened. Sure. It's just the way. That's just the way it was.
You could still put hands on people back then.
Oh yeah. Oh
yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I saw a few times. We had this one guy, Sergeant Askew. He's one of our drill instructors, and he beat the living shit out of people.
Yeah.
You'd be standing there in formation or standing inside the squad bay, at a position of attention in your underwear, because you're doing all these crazy inspections, and you're like, you want me to stand in my underwear? What the hell's happening? And he's over there beating some guy's ass. It's like, wow, what the hell am I? So
what MOS did they give you?
So I end up getting through the second or third day before graduation. They sit everybody down in the classroom and they start announcing what your MOS is. And it's funny, it's like the left side, they're like McDonald's flipping eggs. I'm like, flipping eggs? I'm just like, I have no idea what he's even talking about. So he's like, it seemed like they cut the class in half. It's like this side of the class is all motor T, this side of the class is all cooks. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, flipping eggs. And you can't talk, you can't ask questions. So
yeah.
So I think we went back to the barracks and and usually in that third phase, just before graduation, they kind of treat you a little bit better. They're not yelling and screaming at you. And I think one of the guys that was in my same MOS. He's like, Private Johnson's request permission to speak, sir. Speak. He's like, what's flipping eggs? You're a nasty cook. You're a freaking nasty cook. That's what you are. That's how you're gonna be. Like, and the guys that got picked for cooks were like, cooks? Like what? We didn't want to do that. So we graduate, go home for a couple of days, go back to and then we go end up going to our MOS school, which was in Camp Johnson, which is a little camp outside of Camp Lejeune. So they have like Camp Geiger, Camp Johnson, and they're just little MOS schools. Camp Geiger is all infantry type stuff. We went directly. I'll take that back. My job was even funnier. I think it's hilarious. My job was a basic baker. I was a baker, so I was like, all right, okay. So I'm gonna be baking cookies and making biscuits for everybody. Like, all right, so we show up and all motivated. We're young Marines and going through the school like, what the hell? Like, what? I don't want to do this shit. Wow. And this guy Mike from he was actually from Coventry, Connecticut, which is just like a hole in the wall place.
Yeah.
Real small town. And he ended up being a basic baker, right? So he's like, I'm not doing this crap. He's like, I came in, I want to be infantry, I want to go to the recon, I want to do this and this and this and this. Sure enough, he's like, oh, I hurt my back at PT today. He was gone. Like, yeah, that dude like faked that injury. He's gone. They separated him from the Marine Corps. That was it. He's gone. Yeah. So things like that you could probably get away with back then. If they didn't want you, if you didn't want to be there, why the hell you want to be there? Just get
and what year was this?
Still 88.
Yeah,
1988.
Yeah, we hadn't really geared up. The military in the early '80s, hell, they were getting rid of people. So yeah, it wasn't as hard.
Yeah. So then, I get through that school and I get assigned to 2nd Battalion, 2nd Marines, which is just down the street at Camp Lejeune. I go report in, and I want to say it was just right after Thanksgiving or right before Christmas. I get there, and they're like, "Hey, go home on leave. You got 4 days of leave." Okay, and some other sergeant was checking in at the same time. He's like, "Where are you from?" I said, "Connecticut, Sergeant." He's like, "I'm from New York. You want to ride us?" Like, okay. So I like the ride from this guy. I didn't even freaking know.
Yeah.
We get up there, and I think I got on a bus. I think I took a bus from there to Connecticut. I go home for vacation for Christmas leave, I think it was, and come back and like boom, get deployed and go to cold weather training for. I want to say it was like 4 months, 3 to 4 months. We went to California, coldest place in the world, Wisconsin, and then to Norway for about a month.
Wow.
Did that, and then came back, got deployed to Okinawa. It's really, in my job, man, I was like, okay, I got to wear this funny white uniform, and my ranks still got to be perfect. My boots got to be polished, all this stuff, and they end up putting me in this job called the field mess. Are you familiar with that? Field mess? Yeah. So like I'm in charge of everything that when the infantry units go out to the field, I go and I'll cook them what they used to call hot wets. So it was like hot soup, coffee, and one other thing I can't remember. And that was like my job.
Yeah.
I became like the guy that, hey, Echo Company's going in the field. You're going. I was like, okay. So, I'd always have my stuff clean and it was a good time. I really liked that part as far as like being kind of like put the responsibility was put on me as a. What was I? I think I was a Lance Corporal E3 when I got assigned the job. And there was a corporal that did it with me, but man, the corporal just sat back and just chilled, and I did everything. It was great. So
how did you go from cook in the Marines to Bureau of Prisons?
So I get out. Then I got deployed to Desert Storm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, went through Desert Storm. We cooked there for about 2 weeks, and then they pushed us. Our first sergeant loved us because our first sergeant was like kind of like a hefty guy. He's a Vietnam vet, real great guy. First Sergeant Veal, I still remember his name. And he'd always come up, he'd be like, hey, because I'd have to always go to the company office to get like the mail for everybody and stuff like that. So he'd be like, hey, McDonald, go make me some cinnamon rolls. All right, First Sergeant. So I run back up to the chow hall and I tell whoever's in charge of the bakery, hey, First Sergeant wants some cinnamon rolls, and we knock him out a bunch of pastries and stuff. He loved us. we get over to the Gulf, and he's like, hey, I need you guys to come up front with us to do patrols and stuff. We're like, patrols? What do you mean? Like, we're gonna go up front with you guys? Oh yeah, come on, let's go. So we did that, and we got trained. We got augmented to an anti-tank company with this reserve unit, and we got to like blow up a bunch of tanks, all kinds of cool shit. It was the funniest thing. It was like, we'd run into these grunts from our unit from 2-2, and one time I ran into this guy. He was a scout sniper, and Mike, we're like freaking miles away from everybody. Like we're looking around, we're like, shit, I think we're really too far ahead. We're just sitting there in a security position, and this other Humvee pulls up. He goes, McDonald, what the hell are you doing up here? I was like, I'm attached to this tow company. He's like, aren't you a cook? I said, yeah. You know how far ahead of you, everybody else you are? I was like, no.
Oh, wow.
He's like, you guys better like stay right here or move back a little bit because you guys are like ahead of everybody.
Oh, wow.
It was kind of funny. Then we kind of got that reputation in our unit, like, hey, don't mess with those guys. They're pretty good dudes.
Killer cooks.
Oh yeah. Well, we called ourselves combat cooks. So.
Combat cooks. There you go.
So I ended up getting out of the Marine Corps, and a couple things happened in the Marine Corps. Like I was when I was in Okinawa, I was viciously attacked by another Marine, and he tried to kill me, tried to cut my throat, and I fought him off, and I ended up getting stabbed in the chest pretty bad. I got a pretty good wound right here, right where my pectoral muscle meets everywhere right here, and it just kind of ruined a lot of things for me because I wanted to re-enlist. I couldn't pass a PT test anymore. I had trouble shooting.
Oh, man.
Because it really affected me pretty bad. It was really hard to work out after that. It still, to this day, it still hurts a little bit here and there. A lot of scar tissue built up in there, things like that. So when I got out, I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. I was scared, man. I was like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
And I was only, not to say, Desert Storm was like fighting in Afghanistan or Iraq, but, it was our little war, It was like, hey, we saw combat. We blew some tanks up with some people in it. We shot at people and stuff like that, So,
right.
that plays a game with you. So I get out. I already had I was married at the time. My daughter was already, what was my daughter? My daughter was probably going on pretty close to a year, maybe like 8 months, somewhere around there. I was like, all right, so I'm going to try and join the Army. That didn't work.
Right.
And then tried to do that, and then ended up moving back to Connecticut because we really didn't have anywhere to go. So get back there, and I start working. I started working at a restaurant. Hated it. Absolutely hated it.
Yeah.
I just couldn't it was hard to adjust to back to society. In early 90s is like 92. Yeah, it was September of 92 when I got out. Really hard to get back into society, I felt. I ended up joining the Marine Corps Reserves in Massachusetts, which was a blessing.
Right.
So I'm still active in the Marine Corps as a reservist now. By now I was a corporal. I report to my reserve unit, and just so happens I know the Master Gunnery Sergeant from when I was in the Marine Corps, active Marine Corps.
Uh-huh.
He's like, hey, Mac, you got it. You're running the whole thing. I'm like, okay. So I just took charge, and he, did his thing. I did my thing, and we had a real good team up there. Things really went well, and I really loved doing that. Still had a hard time with like the PT stuff, and I mean, it was tough. And then, so then I'm like, all right, now I have to find a full-time job. I can't work in restaurants. I already realized that.
Yeah.
I think I was working. I was like, working at a tire store, like changing tires and stuff. So I was like, whatever money I could make, I was trying to make. So
yeah, whatever came along.
And I was like unloading, I was unloading bananas off of a tractor trailer too, by hand.
Yeah.
53-foot trailer by hand. You're unloading it at like 2 a.m. I'm just like, man, what the hell am I doing?
Right.
It was tough work. So, like working 3 jobs, kid at home, a very unhappy wife. Just, it was tough. And so I end up, all right, so either I'm going to try to become a cop or something like that. So I applied for the state police, didn't work out. Applied for one of the towns, didn't work out. Even back then they were like, hey, we want people with an education. I'm like, well, hey, I'm a veteran, and didn't really matter. So
right.
Actually I went to school. I started going to school, realized I couldn't do that either. Just, I don't know, man. It's just kind of one of those things. It's just like hard for me to accept or adjust back into society, I guess you could say.
Right. Yeah.
So I end up, I don't know if I met somebody. I think I met somebody that was working for Connecticut Department of Corrections. So I'm like looking it up, and prison was not on my mind at all. And I'm like, and I looked through the job openings they had, and they had a food service specialist type job. I was like, okay, well, I know how to cook in mass. I know how to do all that stuff. So,
yep.
So I get an interview. I'm like, yes, I'm going to get this job. And I think back then it was like $30,000 a year or whatever. So I'm like, I'm going to be rich. So
right.
I remember going for the interview, and I, the military, the Marine Corps teaches you, hey, you're gonna look professional all the time. You're gonna have a nice suit, had a tie on, and I walk in this place, and it is an absolute shithole. I want to say it was in Hartford, Connecticut, the county lockup type place. So I go in there, and the guy, I guess he was in charge of food service. Just me and him doing the interview.
Right.
And he's asked me some food service questions. Now here's this guy. He's got like a white T-shirt with like spaghetti stains on it. I'm just like, man, this ain't gonna be good. I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to. So I guess I knock out the interview, and I'm waiting, and now I'm working. I'm working a security job for this grocery store called Stop and Shop, and I'm the whitest guy in the world, right, from Connecticut, and they put me in Hartford, Connecticut, which is like where like the Latin kings were born. I just didn't fit in. Let's just say that.
Sure.
So I didn't fit in at all. I'm just like, man, I got to get a job. This ain't gonna work. So I never hear anything from them. And then so my parents were friends with this one guy, Gary Holmes. Gary was a lieutenant at Danbury, Connecticut, which was where I was living. Living then was probably about 45 minutes away, down towards New York state line. So we go to this family party, and me and Gary are talking. He's like, where are you working? What are you doing? And he's like, why don't you apply for the Bureau of Prisons? I'm like, what the hell is that? He goes,
right.
Oh, it's the federal prison system. He's like, I'm going to get you the application. I'm going to get you working. Okay.
Yeah.
So I apply, and back then it was typewriter or handwritten. I don't know. Was that before?
Yeah, it was about 38 pages by the time you got done.
Oh yeah. I was like, and I'm typing like this, click, 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 click. So I apply, I get the interview, and now I got like a real nice suit on. I'm like, all right, I'm getting this job. I don't care. So I go in the interview, and back then the interview panel was like 7 people. I was like the psychologist, the AW, the department head, like HR person, captain, a couple other people were in there. And and you sit there and you're like, oh man, this is gonna be rough. So just so happens the food administrator was a Marine. The captain, I don't know. You've heard of Mike Kruzwicki?
Yeah. I don't think I've met him, but I know the name.
Kruzwicki's the captain. The whole group was like these stellar people in the bureau back then, right? So I was like, I'm basically sitting at the position of attention in my suit, sure. And the guy who was a Marine, he's like, Glenn, just relax. He's like, you don't have to sit at attention. Just relax. And they're asking me, the common questions, and we're having a pretty good time with the interview. And I get the job, and I start in Danbury October 93. I start there. Go through IF. I learned it was a pretty good job. Definitely something I didn't realize. A lot of people don't realize it's out there. And you can really make a good living, make a good career for yourself. So I started in Danbury. Great group of guys I was working with. We at the time was a male facility, and most of the inmates were mafia guys, like big time, like white collar guys. Just nothing
East Coast out there.
Yeah, sure. Nothing too violent, nothing like that. It's a low security facility, so there's no big deal. And plus, I was a cook foreman, so all I really saw was the kitchen. And Gary was a lieutenant, so I already had a inside track of hey, if I need something, I can go to him, and kind of thing like that. And Gary was like an old head, probably started like back in the 70s, old head. So
yeah,
the guy you wouldn't screw with. He was always the day watch lieutenant or the shoe lieutenant. So
yeah,
good group of people that worked there back then. Met a lot of great people. Still friends with quite a few of them when we talk to each other. So we end up doing a mission change, probably 6 to 8 months. We go to female. Right?
Oh Lord!
That says it all. Right there. So out of nowhere, man, it's like a mass exodus of like the senior staff. Like, boom, they're gone. I'm getting the hell out of here.
All right.
So I'm not I have no idea. I have no idea what's to come. So the females show up, and back then they didn't have uniforms. They show up in street clothes, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was like, this is probably not good.
Yeah.
So, no uniforms. Like, they got their Jordache jeans back then, their Z Cavaricci jeans, whatever brand name jeans they had back then, skin tight, like the clothes they shouldn't be wearing, right?
So this is low level females.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, back then you only had, I don't know what it is even is now, but all they had was like a low and a high security female inmate.
Right.
They didn't really even have like a status. It was just like you're just a female inmate. It's like, oh, what'd you do? Oh, I killed my 3 kids. Oh, you're still a low security inmate. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. You're nonviolent at all because you're a female. Okay.
Right.
Well, good luck. So the females come, and it's just like, it's kind of like a shock. It's an absolute shock to everybody, I think. And, we're doing our best to get used to this new style of prison, being a prison staff member, dealing with the females. And all of a sudden, man, people are getting in trouble. I mean, people are having sex with inmates, all kinds of inappropriate stuff going on.
Wow.
It's kind of like, man, you're like kind of like, I would see it and I'd be like, man, what the hell are you doing? A couple of the people that I back then I cared about, I'd be like, hey, man, what are you doing? You can't be doing shit. You cannot say that stuff to the inmates. Of course, we went through all this training where, hey, inmate, you can't, they didn't call it sexual harassment training back then. I don't know what they called it, but I think it was like dealing with female offenders or something like that.
Yeah.
It's a whole different world, man. A whole different world. People are getting in trouble all the time. So I'm kind of, I was kind of getting sick and tired of it. Oh, actually, here's a good story. So this guy, we're working in a temporary dining hall and kitchen because they're like redoing our main facility. So I was working at night and I leave and I'm like, damn, I forgot my jacket. I'm going to go back and grab my jacket. And so I go back to the dining hall and sure enough, man, I walk in. There's my fellow cook foreman. He's in between the legs of this one inmate. And I'm like, maybe I didn't see that right or something, And
Right.
Like, hey, I forgot my jacket. I'm going to go grab my jacket. I'm kind of like walking like this. I got my blinders on. La, 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 la. I don't want to see nothing. La, la, la. So, and there's already people getting in trouble. People getting walked out. Rumors everywhere. So, grab my jacket and leave. And, I'm driving home. I'm like, nah, that wasn't right. That wasn't right at all. Something was going on.
Can't let that slide.
No. So, like the next day I go, when I get back to work, I pulled that guy who's one of my supervisors. His name was Al, former Marine. I said, hey Al, I got to talk to you. He's like, what's up? He's like, hey, when I was working last night, this is what happened. He's like, well, that doesn't sound right. I said, no, it wasn't. And, so Al, doing what he's supposed to do, he contacts SIS. So, and his name was, oh man, what's his, real good dude. He's a lieutenant. I can't remember it now, but
yeah,
Holleran, Bernie Holleran. I don't know if you ever heard.
Oh yeah, no, I know Bernie.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He's another old
good guy. I didn't know he was up there.
Yeah. So
yeah,
Holleran's the SIS lieutenant. So. I only had, probably at the time, man, I only probably had just over a year, if that. So I was still a rookie, trying to feel my way through this craziness. And now we got female inmates.
Wow.
So Bernie comes up to me during mainline. He goes, hey, I got to talk to you. I was like, oh, shit. Like, I'm in trouble. The lieutenant's talking to you, you're in trouble. Back then, it was like that. Lieutenant or the captain talk to you, you're in trouble. So Bernie brings me in the back and he asked me what was going on, and I was like, well, this is what I saw, and that's all I saw. So then he brings me down to Cruz Wiki's office. I gotta say the same story. He goes, all right, McDonald, sounds good. All right, so go back, whatever, go back to your boss. So So like probably like a week later, I come to work, and everyone's out front. They're like, "Hey man, did you hear what happened?" I was like, "No, what happened?" He's like, "They walked him out. His name was Spade. Last name was Spade. They walked Spade out." I'm like, "They did? For what?" In my head, I'm like, "Ding, ding, ding, ding. They got him." So
right.
So I go walk into work, and Al's at the door. He's like, "Hey, come here." He's like, "I'm going to tell you exactly what happened." I was like, "What happened?" He's like, "I knew that son of a bitch was working last night. I stayed here. I walked out. I told him I was leaving." And he tricks him, so he walks out. And we used to have in the dining facility that they were rehabbing, they had a up top, up on the second floor, they had this little storage area called like the chemical room, I think it was.
Yeah.
He's like, "Man, I knew exactly where he was going with that inmate." I was like, "What'd you do?" He's like, "I snuck back in. I went up to the chemical room, and it's hiding behind a bunch of jugs. And I just waited. And sure enough, Spade went up there with that inmate." He was behind that inmate. You know what he was doing. I don't want to be too, but I was like, he's like, "Oh yeah, I stopped him right before it happened."
Oh.
So they caught him, and it was Cruisewicki was there, and Holleran were all there at the same time because they knew something was going to go down.
Right.
So they caught him red-handed, man. Red-handed.
Man.
And after that, man, I was like, "Man, I don't think I want to be here anymore."
Yeah. I've seen it 100 times. I still don't understand it. Yeah.
It's rough.
But I don't know.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm going to tell you straight up. Some of the inmates that were there were very attractive. They're like Colombian inmates from California, really good-looking ladies, right? But it's like, hey, they're an inmate.
They're an inmate.
We're here to supervise them. They're not getting in trouble, doing what they're supposed to do.
Yep.
And, a lot of people took advantage of that.
There's good-looking ladies downtown if you need something to do after work. Yeah, keep it out of work.
If you need something to do, go down the bar. The girl at the end of the bar where she passed out in a bowl of peanuts. Tap her on the shoulder. I'm sure she'll bring you home. So.
Yeah. So how'd you go from cook to what'd you go to next? Officer?
So then I went to 95. I went and activated Florence, Colorado, because I was kind of like,
okay,
all right, well, I know I need to get out of here. I don't want to say fast track, but I want to be promoted because I know I can do a little bit more than what I'm doing now. So I went out there for the chance of, doing another tour somewhere as a cook foreman, and then maybe go somewhere else as an assistant food service administrator.
ADX Florence.
Yeah. So
that was the Super Max.
Yeah. Yeah. So I really liked.
The Bureau built that to
do what?
Right. I was just saying for everybody that doesn't know, the Supermax was what the Bureau of Prisons built to replace Marion, Illinois. Right. That was the newest and greatest. So that was a great activation for you to go be part of.
Yeah. So, like I was saying, I really, really liked the food service, the whole thing that I was doing. I really enjoyed it. And I was surprised I actually liked it as much as I did. So, I get there. And already I'm like, oh, this is great. It's just a big giant shoe,
Right.
That's all. It's a big giant shoe. So at the time, we didn't have any inmates, and then probably a few months later, we started getting trickled in some of the worst of the worst, right?
Sure.
And I didn't really see what was going on down ranges or anything like that. I was put on a detail to load the food carts, and then I got to drive this train around.
Right.
It was like a little cart, right? I'm like driving there, just drive down the hallways, go to every. and then it was like I don't know how many feet. It was like every 75 or 100 something feet, there'd be another gate. Get to the gate. Control would open the door. Don't ever push the button.
Right.
They see you. There's cameras like every couple feet. They know where you are.
Yeah. Every control center is an asshole about that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, they put you on door timeout, right? And then they met. And you'd be like, you'd be sitting there, and then you go like this, and they get on the speaker. Hey, don't do that. So I was like, all right, I understand this game already, right? So
Right.
I did that for a little while, and then some. Then my wife was pregnant at the time, and we ended up losing. I had two sons that were born, and they were both born very, very in bad condition, and they both passed away a couple of days after birth. So, and my wife was very distressed, very upset, and I don't know, my feelings are all, I don't know what that was from, but I was a mess.
Sure.
So we end up. So the warden calls me. He goes, "Hey, what do you want to do?" He goes, "You want to transfer back? Because I already heard that you were thinking about going back to East Coast." I was like, "Let me talk to my wife." And we decided to go back to Connecticut because that's where her family is, my family, whatever. So
right.
I end up going back to Danbury as a cook foreman again, and I get there and I'm like, I was only in that. I think I was in that penitentiary probably 6 months. I think.
Right.
I just get back. I'm like, this is just not the same. It's female inmates again, so I'm just like, this is bullshit. So, I talked to the captain and said, hey, I want to go. And I talked to Al. I said, hey, I'm just not fitting in. I just want to go over to be an officer. So they let me ladder over to an officer, and it was nice because I went right to a GS7, because of the pay scale and everything. So I went right to a 7. And yeah, so I kind of like Gary's still working there. Gary's, he's taking care of me, hooking me up with working shoe, working control, learning how to work, certain posts, things like that. Let me work in the armory once in a while.
Right.
By then I think I was already BPT qualified. I ended up getting become a firearms instructor. They sent me a firearms instructor. I'm on like disturbance control. I really take a big liking to all that stuff, like the emergency preparedness type stuff.
Yeah.
I had no idea what the hell I was doing, but I really liked it. So, I was working whatever. I was working a ton of overtime. Whatever. Hey, call McDonald. He'll do it. And it's like, I'll just show up out of the blue. Like, oh, I'm here. I'll work 6 shifts in a row. I don't care. It's just like, it doesn't matter. And I was all gung ho about it and just really loved it. I think it was like well, it did. It became like an escape for me. Definitely. I got really wrapped up into it. So with all the
keeping busy, so you didn't have to think about other stuff.
Yeah, a lot of things coming in my mind that weren't good. Still
right.
Stuff I didn't realize what was going on, like from the Marine Corps and stuff like that. And,
I think a lot of us do that.
Yeah, I end up going to talk to the VA and stuff, and they're like, "Yeah, you're a freaking mess," shit like that. So I go that route a little bit. Yeah, but I just kind of just like absorbed myself into the whole BOP thing. Just tried to get everything I could. Went to bus school. Went to well, that was a little bit later, but really got involved in the DCT stuff. Became a DCT instructor.
Yep.
Became a lead firearms instructor. Became a lead DCT instructor. Really loved that shit. Loved it.
Yeah. I believe that's one of the times where we first met. Whereas lead. Yeah.
And I think
all that's at Danbury.
Yeah. So
or had you moved yet?
No, that was all in Danbury. So then,
okay.
By then I got my GS8. They made me acting lieutenant a bunch of times. It was like one of those like, hey, you can't go over 90 days, but day 89, you're going to go back on shift, and then tomorrow you're going to be activities again. I was like, oh, okay, awesome. No, I didn't care.
Yeah. I was acting for 3 years. Yeah.
I wasn't getting paid for it. It didn't matter to me. I didn't care. Right.
Yeah.
And, and I kind of realized like, hey, not to sound like big headed, but I'm pretty good at this stuff as far as like supervising staff and doing what you're supposed to do. Everything that the lieutenants are far as supposed to do. So I end up going through doing a couple more schools. Really loving that. Got put on a couple special. I don't know if you call them special, but like we got to when they closed down the DC jails.
Mm-hmm.
We had to go down there and pick up like a couple loads of female inmates. I got put on that detail, which was pretty cool. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I had to drive all the way from Connecticut down to DC in this little Bluebird bus. It was like hell. I was like, man, this sucks. Got to do like a whole bunch of like, soap flights and, like all the special stuff. I don't know. I just always got picked for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, so it was good. And I worked with, and, by then the females were already there for a good few years, and they started like an influx of like hiring female staff.
Right.
And we had some really stellar freaking staff. I tell you, some of them females were just awesome. Really great lieutenants. Just good time. And, I think it was, I wasn't a lieutenant. I was still GS8 there. And I was like, well, and everyone's like, they're like, hey, Mac, you should be a captain. You should be an AW. And I'm just like, I should? Like, thinking in my head, I'm still this dumb freaking cook, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. So doing the best I can. And I was like, all right, so let me try this out. And, things weren't good at home. It was tough. Definitely tough. But then, on the career side, things were great.
Right.
But I was always at work. Always. Right. Always. Oh, you got overtime at the hospital? I'll take it.
Right.
Just like a overtime whore, man. I was terrible. And
so where'd you promote next?
So I ended up getting my GS9 to Devens, Mass. So I went up to Devens, Mass.
Okay.
Which was definitely different. Medical facility.
Yep.
I can't remember how. I think it was probably open. It's probably open a good 4 or 5 years before I got there, maybe a little bit longer. So I was pretty established already of who was who and the pecking order and everything like that. So I get up there, GS9, working my ass off. Had this idea that I could handle commuting back and forth to Connecticut. That didn't work out. So, things, I already knew things were pretty bad already. So we ended up getting a divorce. Very, 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 very difficult divorce. A lot of bad things happened. Didn't see my kids very much. It was tough. It was tough, man. Very, very difficult times during my times at Devens.
So you're throwing yourself into the job.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Deep. Oh yeah. So I was just working, just kind of like barely even had a place to stay. I was like, at a point there, I was pretty much homeless. I was. It was funny. I was this guy Pat Kelly was he was an EDM back then, or EDS or something. And he worked out at the training center, which is right outside the camp.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of an isolated area. He's like, hey man, he's like, I heard you're going through some shit. I said, oh yeah. He's like, well, you need a place to stay. I said, yeah. He's like, come see me after work. He gives me the key, an extra key to the training center. And I kind of lived there for a couple months.
Right.
I did, man. I slept. I would go in there at night. I'd put the wrestling mats, those blue padded mats. I'd put those down, take my sleeping bag, roll it out, fall asleep, wake up, take a shower, go to work.
Right.
I did that for a few months. A couple of guys I'd hot rack with them. Hot rack. You'd go to work. I'd come in, go to sleep in the same bed. I did that too. Just trying to make ends meet. I was freaking broke. It was tough, man. Tough. And so I end up being divorced, doing the best I could there. End up meeting a girl that worked there. So we end up getting married again. Second time. Hey, things will be great, right? Yeah.
Right.
Still, I mean, and and I hate sounding like this, but I know the things I was going through, still stuff from the military, and then things like through that divorce and things from work and things like that. That pressure was just like that. That pressure cooker was, it was on high, definitely high.
Right.
So,
Sure.
Probably at that point, I think it was like 2 years. I did 2 years as a 9. Great place. So, I mean, the staff at Devon's, I love them. I mean,
right.
Definitely one of my top 3, top 4 places I've worked in. Everybody's really tight. We all took care of each other. If somebody screwed up, somebody would bang in. Guess what? We'd be waiting for you, either at the top of the door or at main line. Be waiting for
right.
you. Oh, here he comes. You walk by, be like, hey, hey, MFer, guess what?
Uh-huh.
We ain't going home tonight. Just shit like that. People would go out to the cars. They wouldn't have wiper blades anymore. Stuff like that. Hey,
yeah.
Back then, I mean, that's just what we did. Hey, you screw up, you're gonna pay for it. You don't do that.
Yeah.
You don't do that to your fellow officers. We're
supposed to be a team.
Yeah, my feet hurt. I'm not going to work. The sky's blue. I'm not going to work today. It's like, the sky's blue every day. We need you, and we need you at work.
Yeah.
So, real good place. Really enjoyed my time there. Met some. Still in touch with a few. One of them actually came out to my retirement last year. I talked to him quite a bit. He's still a lieutenant there, and just like, I don't know how he's doing it, but he's still there. So
yeah. So where'd you go next to get your 11?
So I get my 11. I go to Coleman, Florida. God. So I'm like, hey, Florida, yeah, this is gonna be great, Florida, right? So I get there, and have you ever worked down that way?
Did program review down there a couple of times.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting place.
We went to
one side runs like it's new, and one side runs like it's forgotten about.
Remember that we went down to that for that security assessment too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
With that team from Central Office.
Yeah.
So I get in there, bro. The first day, man. The first day, I'm in there, and we had every lieutenant had a locker, like a file your personal stuff in there. So
sure,
I get that assigned to me. I'm messing with it, put my stuff in there, and all of a sudden I see these guys like they're all like dressed really nice. I'm like, hey man, how you doing? I'm Glenn McDonald. Just got here. Yeah, we know who you are. Okay, I'm like, who are you? Oh, I'm a SAS tech. And they're like not in uniform, and I'm just like, okay, that's kind of different. Right?
Yeah.
So then I see they're talking to these dogs. I was at USP 1. So now I'm like, I'm in a USP, GS11 in USP.
Right.
Like, I'm the big dog now. Nah, man. Check your ego, because it's a rough deal. So these guys, they're talking to these inmates, and I'm kind of like watching, like, yeah, this something's not right. So they're like giving inmates stamps and shit like that.
Oh Lord, yep, seen that stuff.
And I'm like, this ain't right. So then this guy. I mean, I don't care about giving up names. This guy Carmona comes in. He's a SIS lieutenant. He's got a real nice suit on. He's like a big time player, right? So he's giving books. He's giving books to stamps away. Holy shit. So then it's me and Carmona in the office. It's probably like a week later now. So
yeah.
He's like, it's like, hey man. I was like, I don't know what's going on here, but y'all giving these inmates all these stamps and shit. What can you tell me what's up? He's like, don't worry about it. Give me some attitude, like, hey, don't question what's going on. I was like, do me a favor. When I'm here, don't do that in front of me. I don't want to see it, because I know you're not supposed to. So then it's like, oh, McDonald's a scumbag.
Right.
I know what's right and I know what's wrong. Right. So then, man, Coleman was that was a rough experience. So we had, I can't remember what the captain was, but we ended up getting this other captain who was involved in quite a few things at the other facility at the Medium that came out later on that, like, he got a correctional officer pregnant and all kinds of weird stuff, right? So they bring him over to the USP, right?
Right.
And back then, I mean, you really didn't know about it, but back then, cell phones were a huge issue, and that was like probably the beginning phases of like the cell phones being brought into institutions. You know, back then, I don't even remember if we had walk-through metal detectors. I don't even know if we had to walk through I don't think we got scanned back
Not for staff.
So, I mean, people were probably just putting bags, probably bringing bags of freaking burner phones in for these inmates, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, I don't know how to describe it. I don't know if I had like that. You know, some people probably think it's a bad reputation, but I always thought it was a good reputation of hey, McDonald's going to do the right thing, regardless if it's an inmate or a staff member. I mean, I've had my bumps and bruises with both, but people would kind of like, even the inmates would come up, hey, McDonald, did you hear about that last night? I'm like, nope. Come see me. Okay. You know, kind of, and they give me this information about inmates with cell phones. I'm like, what do you mean cell phones? You know, I don't think I even had a cell phone back then. Who knows? You know, cell phones were like a big thing back then. You had to be It'd be kind of rich back then. You had a cell phone.
They were harder to hide back then too. They were bigger.
So
yeah.
So yeah, it started coming out, man. Like all this dope and all kinds of crazy. I mean, man, like tons of it. We'd find weed all the time down there. I found a couple times. I found some crack cocaine, some straight cocaine, black tar heroin.
Yeah.
You know, and then I kind of got this reputation that, you know, nobody really, a lot of people respected me, but a lot of people didn't like me at all. You know, the way I look at it now is good.
With that much stuff that you're finding, you know, there's dirty staff.
Yeah.
That's a dirty staff problem. That's not a visiting room problem. That's not a basketball over the wire problem.
And, you know, that's already in my head. You know, something's going on here. You know, and I'm doing what you're supposed to do. I'm writing my memo. I send it to SIS. I send it to SIA. I send it to the captain. Doing everything you're supposed to do as a lieutenant. And it's just building and building and building. I'm just, hey, I'm like my first day there. I didn't mention my first day there. I get home and I tell my wife. She's like, "How was your first day?" I was like, "I think I made the biggest mistake of my life." And from there, it just got worse. So then, So I get to, and the captain, me and him didn't get along too good because I actually caught him red-handed giving an inmate like 2 cell phones. Like I'm walking down the lieutenant's corridor.
Yeah.
I can hear talking in the captain's office, and the door's cracked, so he's probably talking to another lieutenant or something, right? So, real quick knock, and I, open the door, and here he is. Here's your 2 cell phones. Like, I'm just like, whoa. It's like, whoa, what did I just see? And Mike, by this time, man, I'm walking around this prison like this. Like,
yeah.
And I'm like, man, there's something really, really, really bad going on here.
Yeah, they got a culture down there that's messed up.
Oh, man, terrible. So,
So how long did you stay at Coleman? Sounds like you were chomping at the bit to get out of there.
I was. Let me tell you a story about Coleman, though. So